Welcome to Michiana Mainlines. Today we're going to finish our trip hauling the empty coal hoppers from Notre Dame to South Bend, Indiana. First here, let's take a look at an overview map of the South Bend area. We see the line up to Notre Dame from South Bend in red. That's about 3 miles long. You also see the east-west Norfolk Southern line through South Bend. Now let's bring up a little expanded view of that South Bend secondary line. There's Notre Dame University. There's the coal pile around that curve area there. We're going to start right by the arrow, which is alongside Douglas Road near US 31 933, and then we will be heading back to South Bend with those empty coal hoppers. This line of course is all gone right now. There's the route we'll be taking. Entering what's called the MC connector. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, and then finally getting down to the main line in South Bend, joining the Conrail east-west main. So we got a lot to talk about here. Let's get started. We'll jump back into our locomotive now. We're heading alongside Douglas Road there to the right. We are approaching US 31 933. About 14 empty coal hoppers here in tow, and we will be heading back to the main line in South Bend. This of course is the Notre Dame siding alongside Douglas Road, where empties were picked up and loaded coal hoppers were spotted. Crossing US 31, now going around the broad curve, and we will be heading, we're kind of heading west-southwest now. We'll be joining the South Bend secondary, the north-south line that ran from South Bend up to Niles, Michigan. There's a good view of the cars in tow as we come around that broad curve, and we'll be entering the South Bend secondary. We're kind of looking up north now towards Niles. To the left you see the siding that went to the St. Mary's power plant. That was still used at this time, which was kind of around the early 80s when this is kind of set. Now we have joined the north-south South Bend secondary, looking southward now, approaching the entrance into St. Mary's. Looking straight ahead, you see a passing siding up there that was in place at this time around the Holy Cross Junior College campus area. The line did not extend farther south into South Bend anymore. Now it was already pulled up probably in the early 80s. That siding is not separated as far as this is depicted here. That's one of the edits that still has to be done on this program, but it kind of gets the job done and kind of shows the way things were. There's kind of a view of that there to the left. Now we are entering what is known as the MC connector. MC stood for Michigan Central, which was that old north-south line, and it connected with the New York Central or Conrail Main, which we will be coming to later. That's why it was known as the MC connector. That was the official designation for this portion of line now, which will move through the west side of South Bend. Kind of a bit of a wilderness area here. Now this entire area is all occupied by housing units. I believe Holy Cross Village and a bunch of buildings take up this area here now. This section we are on now will become a bike trail. It will be known as the Coal Line Trail, which will follow this route through this entire area. A little bit about the simulator we are using. This is called the Trainz simulator, Trainz. There's a lot of train simulators available now if anybody's interested in dabbling with them. Some are pretty affordable. There's even a free one. I believe the old Microsoft simulator, which is no longer marketed by Microsoft, is now known as Open Rails, which I believe is a free program to download. Each of these simulators has their strengths and weaknesses. I'm using the Trainz one because I believe it is one of the best for building routes. There's just tons of items in here that you can add scenery wise. I mean, you're literally never finished with one of these things when you create it. I mean, there's just so much things you can do. Now, if you're really into true realism of operating a real train, I believe the simulator called Run 8, which is based by a company out in California, is about the best to use. From what I hear, that one is about the closest to an actual railroad simulator that the railroads use to train conductors and engineers. But like I say, there's a lot of them to choose from, but I've decided just to stick with this Trainz. Kind of going through a wooded area now, which is kind of to the right of the St. Joseph River, and then we will be crossing the river here shortly. To the left would be Angela Boulevard. Kind of running through some vegetation here now, which is kind of the way this line actually was, with a lot of vegetation covering it, and we actually need to add more probably to make this thing more realistic here. Again, now Angela Boulevard would be over to the left. Log Joint Tube Company visible up ahead, as well as the bridge over the St. Joseph River. Entrance to an apartment complex here now we will be crossing first. Crossing the St. Joseph River and approaching Riverside Drive. Joint Tube entrance. I believe they had a spur here way back when, but not at this time. We will be approaching Woodward Avenue. There was a spur just to the right here that served an oil dealer, I believe, of some sort, but again, no longer at this time. Portage Avenue overpass up ahead. And to the right would be the Old Drury's complex. Into the 80s there were several small businesses that had warehouses in there. Martin's Supermarket for one, Camlon. There might have been a few others, but then there was a fire and that kind of put the end to that business. But we still see the spur to the right at this time as it was still being used. Switch indicators up ahead showing that we are lined to go straight through. Then we will be approaching Vassar Avenue. First the road that goes into the complex, then Vassar Avenue, Holy Cross School and Church over to the right. Boy, that was close. We will cross Van Buren Street. And almost instantly after that, Wilbur Street. More shrubbery covering the track. Up ahead will be Lincoln Way West. Monarch Laundry here just to the left. Lincoln Way did not have signals, but I added them because I believe they should have. Good view of the hopper cars in tow. Coming up to Rupel Street. There was a passing siding here just to the right, but it was gone at this time. College Street. Werwinski. Longley Avenue. Fosnut Street. That siding ended right here near Fosnut. Continuing southbound. Sibley. Florence Street. Linden Avenue. College Avenue. And right next to it, Orange Street, with signals just as it had. Alongside College here, good view coming around that curve, crossing College and Orange. Approaching Washington Street and signals, Adams Engineering over to the left. This area has been reworked as well. This track was a little bit too straight. Circle Avenue. About this time now, the crew would start calling South Bend Tower to get permission to cross the High Line in order to reach their yard area on the south side of the Conrail main line. Sometimes they would get right across, other times they might be kept waiting here for maybe even an hour or more if there was a lot of traffic on the Conrail main line. There's the South Bend Smelting siding over to the right, which was still used in the early 80s to ship out fly ash. Switch indicator showing that we are aligned properly. Again, this track is all gone now. Some old industries around this area. South Bend Range used to be over to the left. main line up ahead. Looks like we got clearance because we're entering the main. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at kind of the old Notre Dame coal operation on the South Bend to Niles line. The line up to Niles has been almost finished now, so we'll probably be doing something with that in the future. Again, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, see you later.